Somebody playing in tonight's national championship game could be a Texas Longhorn within the next few days. We've got some scoop coming your way on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're locked on to the Texas Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you, everydayers, for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, so please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving a comment. So thank y'all sincerely for that. The CFP National Championship game is just a few hours away, and one of the starters in tonight's game could be a transfer target for your Texas Longhorns. The deadline to enter the portal has come and gone for 134 of the 136 FBS teams, but for the two teams that are still standing, their players get an additional 5 days to go portaling following the conclusion of tonight's festivities. So we could see a number of new entrants from both Indiana and Miami throughout the course of the week. But there is one name in particular that Texas fans should be keeping an eye on, and one name that I know Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns coaching staff are keeping an eye on too. That's Indiana right guard Bray Lynch. An interior offensive lineman. Yes, an interior offensive lineman. Currently the number one position of need for Steve Sarkisian's squad. Bray Lynch isn't just any interior O-lineman. He is very good. Started every game for the Hoosiers here in 2025. He also started every game for the Hoosiers offensive line in 2024 as well. So a multi-year starter. He's a redshirt junior. He's been at Indiana for 4 years. He's got 1 year of eligibility remaining, and he's a guy who would make a lot of sense for Texas, and a guy that I've been told is a major, major target for the Texas brass. Now, it might seem highly unlikely that a starter on Indiana would want to leave Indiana, considering the way things have been going in Bloomington over the last couple of years. But despite that, there have been some rumblings that Lynch could be looking elsewhere. Why would Texas be in the mix? Well, Bray Lynch is from Austin. Played his high school football at Westlake, just a few miles up the road from the University of Texas campus. He was a 3-star recruit in high school, did not have a Texas offer in high school, but he's developed into a really, really solid offensive lineman on a championship caliber team. And the Horns would love the chance to offer him now and make up for what they didn't do a few years ago. Lynch, by the way, won 3 state championships during his time at Westlake. He could be winning a natty tonight. The guy's a winner. Everywhere he goes, success seems to follow. Westlake hadn't won state since 1996 until Bray Lynch got there. He won 3 straight for the Chaparrals. Indiana's never been close to winning a national championship. Enter Bray Lynch. All of a sudden, the Hoosiers are playing for a title tonight. Coincidence? I think not. I'm not giving Todd Dodge or Kurt Signetti any of the credit. None of the other players are getting credit. It's all Bray Lynch. He's the only reason those teams are winning games. You know, what's interesting about Bray Lynch's situation, just to give a few more details here on why this could be not just a pipe dream for the University of Texas. The Hoosiers have already brought in a transfer guard in Wisconsin's Joe Brunner. That's a name we talked about a bunch here on Locked On Longhorns. A guy Texas was very interested in, but ultimately decided to sign with Indiana. So they've already brought in one guard. Indiana's other starting guard on this year's team is slated to return in 2026. So there might not be a spot at guard for Bray Lynch if he decides to return to Bloomington. Now, I think Indiana wants to keep him. I've heard that they're potentially looking into asking Bray Lynch to switch positions from guard to center for the upcoming season, and they'd love to keep him around. Again, understandably so. They realize that he's a good player and a guy who's been a key contributor on what has been, an elite offensive line the last 2 years. They were semifinalists for the Joe Moore Award in 2024. That was an Indiana team that went 11-1 and made it to the college football playoff. They were a finalist for the Joe Moore Award, of course, given out to the best offensive line in the sport here in 2025. Indiana won the Big Ten, number 1 seed, one win away from a national championship. So you understand why they would try to keep him around. But my question is, would Bray Lynch be open to a position change going into the final year of his college career? I mean, again, he's done a lot for Indiana over the last couple of years. Is he going to be annoyed by the fact that they are asking him to do something else despite all that he's done up there? Or, hey, he wants to stay at guard and he wants to play close. I mean, very close to home here in Austin. Could that be enough to convince Bray Lynch to enter the portal and find his way to the University of Texas? Only time will tell. He wears number 74 if you want to do some scouting tonight. Again, the starting right guard for the Indiana Hoosiers. He's got some skins on the wall, too. I mentioned the team success that Indiana has had, but Bray Lynch graded out as the 10th best guard in the entire Big Ten Conference in 2024. And you look at the success Indiana has had offensively. I mean, just if you've only watched their 2 playoff games, the way they dominated Alabama's front, the way they dominated Oregon's front, they have won in the trenches in these first 2 games. They've been fantastic. And that offensive line has created all sorts of holes for the running game. They've done a great job giving Fernando Mendoza protection in the passing game. That is an elite group. And again, we're talking about a player who has 28 career starts during his time at IU. Indiana, by the way, at one point this season had 4 straight 300-yard rushing games. That is the longest Power 4 stretch since 2017. They had 6 300-yard rushing games as a team. It's the most in a single year in Indiana history. So the Longhorns looking to get the running game back on track after an abysmal effort in 2025. Again, the worst Texas rushing offense since World War II. Obviously, the Horns have added running backs in the portal, getting Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers. They've added some offensive linemen, but they're still looking for more, getting a guy who has been a key cog on what has been a very successful, really in every department, offensive line, but especially on the ground. That would be a massive pickup for Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood and the University of Texas. He's an incredibly smart kid, all Big Ten academic guy. And again, the experience is there. 28 starts, 37 total appearances in his 4 years at IU. He's played in some big games. He's obviously won a bunch of big games already, has a chance to win the biggest game of his college career tonight. I would love for Texas to get him because the Longhorns need a guard. They're set at tackle. Trevor Gooseby at left tackle. We know how good he is. Melvin Siani, the Wake Forest transfer, signed last week. He's going to anchor down the right tackle spot. Brandon Baker's going to shift inside and play a guard. So you feel really good about those 3 offensive linemen. Connor Robertson returning at center. I wouldn't hate Texas looking for an upgrade, but Robertson's going into his 5th year. Talking about a 22 going on 23-year-old as your starting center. That's not a bad thing. The Texas offensive line was a lot better in the last month of the regular season and in the bowl game against Michigan with Connor Robertson on the field. So you could do worse than an offensive line with Trevor Gooseby, with Brandon Baker, Connor Robertson, Bray Lynch, and Melvin Siani as your 5 going from left to right. That'd be good. As of this moment, Dylan Sikorsky is this team's, at least one of this team's starting guards for the fall, the Oregon State transfer. No disrespect to Dylan Sikorsky. Maybe he wants to use this as motivation. I don't feel super comfortable with a young guy like that just finishing his redshirt freshman year who only started 6 games for a really bad Oregon State team. I don't feel comfortable letting him be a starter with the upcoming schedule that the Longhorns have this fall, 9 conference games and a non-conference matchup against Big Ten Ohio State. They need experience. They need talent. They need a dude up front on the offensive line. That is exactly what Bray Lynch is. So come on home, Bray. We'd love to have you here in Austin for your final year of college ball. We'll see what happens. Obviously, the national championship game tonight. And then again, those Hoosiers and Hurricanes will have 5 days to put their names in the portal. I know the Longhorn staff and Longhorn fans, and myself included, will be on pins and needles waiting to see if Bray Lynch decides to leave IU. Would love to get your thoughts on Bray Lynch. Where else do you think the Longhorns need to add in the transfer portal? Again, it's closed for just about everybody. Some more and more names will be popping up potentially over the next couple of days. But where else does Texas need to add? Would love to hear from y'all. All right. That'll do it for this episode. If you made it this far, number 1, God bless you. Number 2, please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, rate 5 stars, all of those great things. Can't thank y'all enough for your continued support of what we're building here on Locked On Longhorns. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the game tonight. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.